The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Station was the largest meeting room in the galaxy. Its walls curved upward like the inside of an egg, covered in glowing symbols from 100 different species. Floating platforms held delegates from every corner of known space. The air smelled different depending on where you stood because each species needed its own atmosphere. Ambassador Park Do-yeon stood on the human platform, his hands folded behind his back. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps with no medals or ribbons. He had learned long ago that showing off meant nothing to aliens who could not understand human symbols anyway. Behind him stood Captain Yoon Hannah in her black military jacket. She was his attach and bodyguard, though she had never needed to protect him from physical danger. The real threats in this room came from words and laws and trade agreements written to favor everyone, except humanity. Do-yeon looked across the vast chamber at the other delegates. The Tylori sat on the highest platform because they believed themselves the oldest and wisest species. Their leader, High Mediator Voss, had blue-green skin that shifted colors with his mood. Right now it was pale, almost white. That meant he was bored. Below the Tylori were the Kelethi, insect-like beings with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. Counselor Rin represented them. She clicked her mandibles together whenever humans spoke, a sound that meant impatience in her culture. The Fenari, the Dromoth, the Yil, all of them sat on their platforms and watched the humans with expressions ranging from mild interest to open contempt. Do-yeon had been coming to these meetings for 15 years. He had watched 3 different human ambassadors try and fail before him. Each one had accepted whatever scraps the council offered. Believing that patience would eventually earn respect, Do-yeon was done with patience. He stepped forward to the speaking circle and waited for the translation systems to activate. When the soft chime sounded, he began. "Honored delegates of the Galactic Council," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "The United Earth Coalition has considered your previous offers carefully. We have consulted with our government, our military leaders, and our people. Today, I present humanity's final proposal for membership terms." High Mediator Voss leaned back in his seat. His skin flickered to a darker shade. Amusement. Du Hyan continued. "We request equal voting rights on all council matters affecting human territory or citizens. We request fair access to trade routes currently controlled by council monopolies. We request formal recognition of human colonies in the Outer Reach, with full protection under council law." He paused and looked around the chamber. "These terms are not negotiable. They represent the minimum conditions under which humanity can participate as a member of this body." For a moment, silence filled the hall, then High Mediator Voss laughed. It was not a quiet laugh. It echoed off the curved walls and bounced around the chamber like a living thing. Other delegates joined in the clicking of Kelethi mandibles, the deep rumbling of Dromoth throats, the high whistling of Fenari breath. Counselor Rin raised one of her 4 arms for attention. "Equal voting rights," she said, her translator turning her clicks and hisses into flat human words. "For a species that has been in space for barely 200 cycles? My people have traveled the stars for 12,000 cycles. Should we have equal voices?" "The human colonies are in disputed territory," added a Dromoth delegate. "The council cannot simply give away what does not belong to anyone." High Mediator Voss waved his hand for silence. He was smiling now, his skin bright with colors that meant he was enjoying himself. "Ambassador Park," Voss said, "your species is young. This is not an insult, it is simply a fact. Young species must learn from older ones. You must earn your place through time and service. Perhaps in another 1,000 cycles, your grandchildren's grandchildren can make such requests." Do-yeon stood very still. Behind him, Hannah felt her hands curl into fists. She had served in the Earth fleet for 20 years. She had fought pirates and smugglers and rogue AI systems. She had never wanted to hit someone as much as she wanted to hit Voss right now, but she stayed still and watched her. Ambassador Do-yeon reached up and touched the golden chain around his neck. It held his diplomatic credentials, a small disc that marked him as Earth's voice in this chamber. He had worn it for 15 years through hundreds of meetings and thousands of insults. Slowly, He lifted the chain over his head. The laughter in the chamber began to fade. Do-Yun walked forward and placed the credentials on the central podium. The small disk looked very alone sitting on that vast surface. The United Earth Coalition withdraws from these negotiations, he said. His voice was still calm, but now it carried through the silent hall like thunder. Effective immediately, we close our borders to all Council space. No Council ship will enter human territory. No Council signal will be answered. No Council citizen will be welcome on any human world. He turned and looked up at Voss. You have made your position clear, High Mediator. You see humanity as children to be taught, not partners to be respected. Very well, we will find our own way. Voss's skin had gone completely white. You cannot do this. No species has ever left Council negotiations. Then we will be the first. Councillor Rin rose from her seat. This is foolish. You need the Council. Your economy depends on our trade routes. Your safety depends on our protection. You will return within a cycle, begging for whatever terms we offer. Do-Yun looked at her for a long moment. We shall see. He turned and walked back to the human platform. Hannah fell into step beside him. She wanted to say something, but there was nothing to say. Her ambassador had just changed everything. As they stepped onto the transport pad that would take them back to their ship, Do-Yun finally spoke. Send the signal to Admiral Beak, he said quietly. Tell him to activate the defense network. All platforms, all ships, all systems. Hannah nodded. Yes, sir, and Captain, sir? Do-Yun looked back at the Grand Assembly Hall one last time. The delegates were already shouting at each other, their platforms moving closer together as they tried to understand what had just happened. Tell the Admiral that we're coming home, Do-Yun said. And we're not going back. The transport pad glowed bright blue, and they disappeared. Behind them, the Galactic Council descended into chaos. High Mediator Voss called for order, but no one listened. Councillor Rin demanded answers that no one could give. Ambassador Krell of the Fenari quietly slipped away to send a message to his homeworld. For the first time in 3,000 years, a species had walked away from the Council. None of them understood what that meant, but they would learn. 3 months after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Admiral Beak Junho stood on the command deck of the battleship Indomitable and watched the stars. The ship floated near Jump Point 7, one of 12 doorways into human space. On the other side of that shimmering tier in space, Council ships were gathering. They had been gathering for days now, waiting for permission to enter. They would not get it. Admiral, said his communications officer, the Fenari ambassador is requesting contact again. This is his 5th attempt today. Junho did not look away from the stars. Same response as before, yes, sir. The officer sent the message that had become humanity's only words to the outside galaxy. The United Earth Coalition is not accepting diplomatic contact at this time. Junho thought about those words. They were polite and cold, like a door closed firmly in someone's face. Ambassador Park had chosen them carefully before he retired to his home in the mountains of Korea. The ambassador was done with aliens. He had given them 15 years of his life, and they had laughed at him. Now they would learn what his patience had cost them. Junho turned from the window and walked through his ship. The Indomitable was one of 30 vessels guarding this jump point alone. 300 more ships patrolled the other entry points into human space. And beyond the ships, the Yun-class defense platforms waited massive stations bristling with weapons that the Council had never seen. The humans had been building these defenses for decades. Every time the Council demanded they reduce their military, humanity smiled and agreed and kept building in secret. Every time the Council inspected human shipyards, they saw only what humanity wanted them to see. Now the masks were off. On Earth, Trade Minister Shin Myra sat in her office and studied economic reports. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. Minister, said her assistant, the agricultural numbers are in. All vertical farms are operating at full capacity. We can feed every human world without any outside resources. Myra nodded. And the mining operations? Asteroid processing is up 40% since the borders closed. We have enough raw materials for the next 50 years. Energy? All fusion plants are online. The new antimatter facility on Mars will be operational next month. Myra leaned back in her chair and allowed herself a small smile. The Council thought humans needed them for survival. They thought that closing the borders would starve humanity into submission. They were wrong. For 100 years, human leaders had quietly built backup systems for everything. Farms that did not need alien fertilizers. Factories that did not need alien parts. Ships that did not need alien fuel. It was expensive and difficult. But the humans did it anyway. Because humans always planned for betrayal. It was a sad truth about the species. They had learned from their own history that friends could become enemies overnight. Nations that traded together for generations could go to war over small insults. Allies could abandon each other when times got hard. So humanity never truly depended on anyone. They smiled and traded and made deals, but they always kept one hand free. They always had a way out. Now that way out was the only way forward. On the Calathi homeworld. Scholar Thea sat in the great library and read about humans. Thea was different from other Calathi. She did not click her mandibles in contempt when humans were mentioned. She did not believe that age made a species wise. She had studied too many ancient civilizations that had destroyed themselves to believe that. Now she was reading human history, and it worried her. Remarkable, she said to herself. Turning a page with one of her 4 arms, the human story was strange. They came from a world that was constantly trying to kill them. Ice ages, plagues, asteroids, volcanoes. Most species would have died out. The humans adapted. They built tools. They built shelters. They built weapons. And whenever things got bad, they got better at surviving. They have found a chapter about something called the World Wars, conflicts where humans killed each other by the millions. It should have ended them. Instead, they came out of those wars with new technology, new medicine, new ways of organizing their society. Another chapter described their early space program. They reached their moon using computers less powerful than a child's toy. They built space stations while their nations still pointed weapons at each other. They did impossible things because they refused to accept that anything was impossible. They closed the book and sat in silence. The Council believed that humans would come, crawling back in a few months. Desperate and broken. Councillor Rin had said so in her speech last week. High Mediator Voss had laughed about it at a dinner party, but Thea looked at human history and saw something different. She saw a species that had been beaten down 1,000 times and got up 1,001 times. She saw a species that turned every disaster into a lesson and every enemy into motivation. She saw a species that should not be underestimated. Thea began writing a report for the Council. She worked through the night, filling page after page with warnings and evidence. When morning came, she sent it to Councillor Rin's office. She never received a response. At the border, Ambassador Krell of the Fenari waited in his small ship. He had been sitting here for 2 weeks, sending requests for contact every few hours. Every request received the same cold answer. Krell was not like the other council members. His people, the Fenari, were traders and merchants. They had no interest in conquest or domination. They just wanted to do business with everyone. And business with humans had been very, very good. Humans were honest. They paid on time. They delivered what they promised. In a galaxy full of cheaters and liars, humans were refreshingly straightforward. The Fenari had made enormous profits trading with Earth. Now that was over, Krell looked at his communication screen and saw no new messages. He thought about Councillor Rin and High Mediator Voss laughing at the human ambassador. He thought about his own silence during that meeting, how he had said nothing, while they insulted a species that had always dealt fairly with his people. He was ashamed. But shame would not open the border. Nothing would open the border except human choice. And right now, humans were choosing to be alone. Krell turned his ship around and flew back toward council space. He would tell his government what he had seen, the massive defense platforms, the patrol ships, the cold silence. He would tell them that humanity was not coming back on the indomitable Admiral Beek Jinho received a report from Earth Command. The Valkyr Dominion, a hostile empire on the far side of Council space, was moving ships toward Council borders. They were testing, probing, looking for weakness. Junho studied the report carefully. The Valkyr had always feared humanity. Human tactics were unpredictable, human soldiers were stubborn, human ships were fast and hard to kill. As long as humanity stood with the Council, the Valkyr stayed back. Now humanity was gone. Junho wondered if the Council understood what they had lost. Probably not. They were too busy celebrating their victory over the upstart humans. They would understand soon enough. He put down the report and looked out the window again. Somewhere out there, Ambassador Krell's ship was flying away. Somewhere out there, their council was planning how to punish humanity for their pride. And somewhere out there, the Valkyr were sharpening their claws. Junho smiled grimly. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about respect. 6 months after humanity closed its borders, the galactic economy began to fall apart. Merchant Captain Drail sat in his ship at Starport 9 and stared at his empty cargo hold. He was Talori, like High Mediator Voss, and he had been a trader for 40 years. He had seen bad times before. He had never seen anything like this. His hold should have been full of medical supplies bound for the Fenari colonies. 3 months ago, this would have been a simple job. He would have picked up the supplies from a human freighter at the neutral station, paid a fair price, and delivered them to the Fenari for a reasonable profit. But there were no human freighters anymore. Now Drail had to buy the supplies directly from the Calathi, who made the medicine. And the Calathi hated the Talori. They had fought 3 wars against each other in the past 1,000 years. The peace between them was cold and bitter. Counselor Rin's trade office had quoted him a price 5 times higher than what humans used to charge. When he complained, they told him he was lucky to get any price at all. So his cargo hold was empty. His crew was getting nervous. His debts were growing. And all across the galaxy, other merchants were facing the same problem. Drail had not realized how much the economy depended on humans. They were the neutral carriers, the trusted middlemen. Species that refused to deal with each other would happily deal with humans. Goods flowed across the galaxy through human hands because everyone knew humans were fair. Now those hands were closed. The Fenari could not get medicine from the Calathi. The Calathi could not get food from the Dromoth. The Dromoth could not get technology from the Talori. Every trade relationship that had used humans as a bridge was broken. Drail's communication screen lit up with a message from his wife. Their daughter was sick and needed treatment. The treatment required Fenari medical technology. The Fenari were not selling to Talori at any price. He put his head in his hands and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so fast on the Calathi homeworld. General Morath reviewed a military intelligence report that made his shell itch with worry. Morath was old for a Calathi, nearly 200 cycles. He had commanded fleets in 2 wars and countless smaller conflicts. He had seen the Valkyr Dominion grow from a minor threat to a major power. He had argued for years that the Council needed to take them more seriously. No one had listened. Now he was looking at sensor data that showed Valkyr ships massing near the Council border. Not just a few ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. It was the largest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled. "They are testing us," said his aide. Morath clicked his mandibles. "No, they are measuring us. There is a difference." He pulled up a tactical display and studied the Council's defensive positions. The Calathi fleet was strong. The Talori fleet was strong. Together with the other species, they could probably stop a Valkyr invasion. But there was a gap in the defense, a hole where human ships used to patrol. Humans had guarded the most dangerous sector of the border, the area where Valkyr raiders liked to strike. Human tactics were perfect for that kind of fast, unpredictable combat. Now that sector was unguarded. Morath had requested ships from other Council species to fill the gap. The Talori had refused because they needed their ships elsewhere. The Fenari had no warships to offer. The Dromoth were too slow for raider combat. The hole remained open, and the Valkyr were looking right at it. Morath sent a message to Counselor Rin requesting an emergency meeting. He needed to tell her that the military situation was getting dangerous. He needed to tell her that they might have to ask humanity for help. She did not respond for 3 days. When she finally answered, her message was short. The humans will return when they get hungry enough. Focus on your job. Morath stared at the message for a long time. Then he went back to his tactical display and started planning for a war he was not sure they could win on the Talari homeworld. High Mediator Voss attended a party at the house of a wealthy merchant 6 months ago. Voss had been the most celebrated leader in the council. He had put the humans in their place. He had defended the dignity and traditions of the elder species. Other politicians praised him. Artists painted his portrait. Children learned his name in school. Now the praise was getting quieter. Voss moved through the party, smiling and shaking hands and pretending everything was fine. But he could hear the whispers. He could see the looks. "My shipping company is losing money every day," muttered one merchant. "My son cannot get the surgery he needs," said another. "When will the humans come back?" asked a third. Voss kept smiling. "Soon," he said. "They cannot survive without council trade. They will beg us to take them back." But it had been 6 months, and the humans showed no signs of begging. Their border was still closed. Their defense platform still glowed with power. Their patrol ships still turned away every visitor with the same cold message. Voss had sent spies to learn what was happening inside human space. Most of the spies had been caught and sent back. The few who returned reported something disturbing. The humans were fine. Their worlds were fed. Their factories were running. Their people were not suffering. If anything, they seemed happier than before. Voss did not understand it. How could a young species survive without the council's resources? How could they build an economy from nothing? How could they be strong when they were alone? He finished his drink and left the party early. His skin had gone pale, and he did not want anyone to see his worry. In her office, Counselor Rin faced a delegation of angry citizens. They were factory workers, shopkeepers, teachers, ordinary Kelathi, whose lives had been disrupted by the human withdrawal. They crowded into her office and clicked their mandibles with fury. "The prices are out of control," said one. "I cannot afford to feed my family." "The hospitals are running out of supplies," said another. "My mother is dying because we cannot get the medicine she needs." "You promised us the humans would come back," said a third. "You said they would beg. Where are they?" Rin raised her forearms for silence. "The situation is temporary. The humans are stubborn, but they will break eventually. No species can survive alone, but we are the ones breaking," shouted someone in the back. Rin did not have an answer for that. After the delegation left, she sat alone in her office and thought about what had happened. She remembered the day when Ambassador Park Do-yun had presented his proposal. She remembered laughing at him. She remembered clicking her mandibles with contempt. Equal voting rights, fair trade routes, recognition of human colonies. At the time, it had seemed ridiculous. Humans were children. They had been in space for only 200 cycles. How could they deserve the same rights as species who had traveled the stars for thousands of cycles? But now Rin was starting to wonder if age really mattered as much as she had believed. The humans were young, yes, but they had built a civilization that could survive without anyone's help. They had created technology that matched or exceeded council standards. They had shown discipline and unity that the council could barely imagine. Maybe the humans had earned their place. Maybe the council had made a terrible mistake. Rin pushed the thought away. She could not afford to show doubt. If her people saw weakness, they would remove her from power. She had to stay strong and wait for the humans to surrender. But as she looked out her window at the protests gathering in the streets below, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Fear. And far away. At the edge of council space, the Valkar Dominion continued to build its fleet. Their scouts watched the unguarded border sector. Their commanders made plans and drew maps. They had waited a long time for this opportunity. Soon, they would take it. 9 months after humanity closed its borders, Intelligence Director San of the Finari presented a classified report to the Galactic Council. The chamber was quiet. No one was laughing now. San was the best spy in the galaxy. His people had been gathering information for 300 years. They knew secrets about every species, every government, every leader. But this report contained secrets that even San had not believed at first. "Honored delegates," he began, "I must tell you about humanity. What I'm about to share will be difficult to hear, but you must hear it." He activated a display that showed human space, their colonies, their stations, their ships. Then he added new data that his spies had gathered over the past 9 months. The display changed completely. New shipyards appeared, new defense platforms, new weapons systems, new colonies that had not existed before the borders closed. "In 9 months," San said, "humanity has increased their military capacity by 40%. They have built ships we have never seen before using technology we do not understand. They have expanded their territory into regions we believed were empty." Counselor Rin leaned forward. "That is impossible. No species can advance that quickly." "I thought so too," San replied. "So I investigated further." He changed the display again. Now it showed research data, scientific papers, technology designs, all marked with human names and dates. Humans have been hiding their true capabilities for over a century. They showed us only what they wanted us to see. While we believed they were struggling to match our technology, they were actually surpassing it. High Mediator Voss stood up. His skin was dark with anger. "This is lies. Human propaganda designed to frighten us." "I wish it were," San said quietly. "But I have confirmed every detail. The humans were never weak. They were never dependent on us. They simply chose to hide their strength while they decided whether we could be trusted." He looked around the chamber. "We showed them we could not." Scholar They asked permission to speak. When it was granted, she rose from her seat and walked to the center of the chamber. She was carrying a thick folder of documents. "I have been studying human history since the withdrawal began," she said. "Director San's report confirms what I suspected. Humans do not trust easily. They plan for the worst case. They always keep reserves hidden." She opened her folder. "But there is something else you need to understand. Humans did not hide their strength because they wanted to deceive us. They hid it because they wanted to give us a chance to accept them as they were without fear." She held up a document. "This is a research paper written by Dr. Lee Yunji of Earth 5 years ago. She developed a new type of shield technology that would have revolutionized defense systems for every species. She offered it to the Talori Science Directorate for free." Voss shifted uncomfortably. "They rejected it," Thea continued. "They said it was theoretically impossible. They did not even test it." She held up another document. "This is a medical treatment developed by human doctors on Mars colony. It could cure a disease that kills 10,000 Caliphs every year. They offered it to our health ministry." Rin's mandibles stopped clicking. "We rejected it too. We said human medicine was too primitive to trust." Thea held up document after document. Agricultural techniques that could feed the hungry Finari colonies. Engineering methods that could have prevented the Dromoth mining disaster. Communication systems that could have saved lives in the Yale border conflict. "The humans offered us everything," Thea said. "They came to us with open hands and asked only to be treated as equals. We laughed at them. We called them children. We told them to wait 1,000 years." She closed her folder. "Now they are gone. And we are discovering that we needed them far more than they ever needed us." The chamber was silent on the border of council space. Admiral Big Junho received a priority message from Earth Command. He read it twice to make sure he understood. The Valkyr. Dominion had massed a fleet of over 2,000 warships. They had issued an ultimatum to the Council: surrender 3 border systems or face total war. The Council had 72 hours to respond. JUNHO studied the tactical data. The Council fleet was large, but not large enough. The Valkyr had chosen their moment perfectly. Without humanity to guard the weak sector, the Council's defenses had a fatal hole. "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked his first officer. Jun So thought for a long moment. Humanity had no obligation to help the Council. The aliens had insulted them, cheated them, laughed at them for 2 centuries. If the Valkar destroyed the Council, it would be justice, but Junho was a soldier, not a politician. He had dedicated his life to protecting people. He could not simply watch while billions died. "Maintain our positions," he said finally, "but keep the fleet ready to move. I suspect we will be getting visitors soon." Back in the council chamber, the delegates were arguing. "We must send a delegation to the human border immediately," said Ambassador Krell. "We must apologize and ask for help." "Apologize?" Voss's skin flashed bright red. "We are the Galactic Council. We do not apologize to anyone." "Then we will die," Krell replied simply. General Morath spoke up from the Kelethi platform. "The Fenari is right. Our fleet cannot stop the Valkor alone. We need humanity's ships, their tactics, their technology. Without them, we will lose this war." "And what makes you think they will help us?" asked Counselor Rin. "We gave them every reason to hate us. Why would they fight for our survival?" No one had an answer. They stepped forward again. "Because that is who they are," she said quietly. "I have read their history. They fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. They protect the weak even when the weak have done nothing to deserve it. They believe that all thinking beings have value." She looked at Voss, even the ones who laughed at them. The High Mediator's skin went pale. "We hurt them badly," Thea continued. "We may have hurt them beyond forgiveness. But we will never know unless we ask. And if we are too proud to ask, then we deserve whatever the Valkyr do to us." The chamber fell silent again. Finally, Counselor Rin stood up. Her forearms hung at her sides and her mandibles were still. She looked tired, older than Junho had ever seen her look. "I will go," she said. "I will travel to the human border myself and request a meeting with their ambassador. I will apologize for what we did. I will tell them about the Valkyr threat. And I will ask for their help." Voss started to object, but Rin cut him off. "I am not doing this for pride," she said. "I am doing this because it is right. We were wrong about the humans. We were wrong about everything. If they refuse to help us, I will accept that. But I will not let my people die because I was too proud to admit my mistakes." She walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused and looked back. "High Mediator," she said, "if I were you, I would start preparing my resignation. Because if we survive this war, the people will want someone to blame. And you have given them many reasons to blame you." Then she was gone. Voss stood alone on his platform, his skin cycling through colors that meant fear and anger and shame. Around him, the other delegates began to talk quietly among themselves. The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had believed themselves wise and powerful and eternal. Now, they were about to learn how wrong they were, and their only hope was a species they had treated like dirt, Rin's. Ship raced toward the human border. She did not know if the humans would even agree to see her. She did not know if anything she could say would make a difference, but she had to try, because the alternative was the end of everything. 1 year after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Counselor Rin's ship arrived at the human border. She had traveled for 3 days through empty space, past abandoned trade stations and silent communication relays. The journey gave her time to think about what she would say. She practiced her speech 100 times. She wrote it down and rewrote it. She tried to find the perfect words, but there were no perfect words for what the Council had done. When her ship reached the border, she found Admiral Beek Jinho's fleet waiting for her. Dozens of warships floated in perfect formation, their weapons dark but ready. Behind them, the massive defense platforms glowed with power. Rin had seen human ships before, but these were different. They were larger, sleeker, more advanced. They looked like they had been designed by a species that had nothing to prove to anyone. Her communication screen lit up. A human face appeared, a young officer with a polite expression. "Counselor Rin," the officer said, "you are in United Earth Coalition territory. State your purpose." Rin took a breath. I request a meeting with Ambassador Park Do-Yun. I come on behalf of the Galactic Council to discuss matters of urgent importance. The officer's expression did not change. Please hold. The screen went dark. Rin waited. She waited for 1 hour. Then 2, then 5. She began to think they would simply leave her there forever, alone at the border. Ignored the way humans had been ignored for 200 years. Then the screen lit up again. Counselor Rin, the officer said, Ambassador Park has agreed to meet with you. You will be escorted to Neutral Station 7. You may bring no weapons and no other personnel. Do you accept these terms? I accept. Her ship was surrounded by human escorts and guided through the border defenses. Rin watched the platforms and ships pass by her window and felt very small. These weapons could destroy the entire Council fleet in hours. The humans had built all of this while the Council was laughing at them. Neutral. Station 7 was a small facility in deep space, a place where humans and aliens had once met to trade and negotiate. It had been empty for a year. Now it was active again, but only one section was lit. Rin docked her ship and walked through the empty corridors alone. Her footsteps echoed on the metal floors. She felt like she was walking to her own judgment. The meeting room was simple: a table, 2 chairs, no decorations. Ambassador Park Do-Yun was already seated when she entered. He looked older than she remembered. His hair was gray now, and there were lines on his face that had not been there before. But his eyes were the same, calm, patient, watchful. Beside him stood a woman in a black military uniform. Rin recognized her from the council chamber, Captain Yoon Hana, now wearing the insignia of a Commodore. Her face showed nothing. Rin sat down across from the ambassador. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ambassador Park, Rin finally said. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Do-Yun nodded slightly but said nothing. Rin had planned to begin with explanations and context. She had planned to describe the political pressures the Council faced, the historical tensions between species, the misunderstandings that had led to that terrible day in the assembly hall. But sitting here, looking at this man who had offered friendship and received only contempt, she could not speak any of those words. Instead, she said simply, "We were wrong." Do-Yun raised an eyebrow but remained silent. "We were wrong about everything," Rin continued. Her voice was steady, but her mandibles trembled slightly. "We treated you as children when you were equals. We laughed at your proposals when we should have listened. We thought our age made us wise, but it only made us blind." She folded her forearms on the table. "I cannot undo what we did. I cannot give back the years of insults and unfairness. I can only tell you that I am sorry. Personally sorry. I sat in that chamber and clicked my mandibles at you, and I was wrong to do it." Do-Yun studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Counselor, I did not come here to receive apologies. I came here to understand what you want." Rin nodded. "The Valkar Dominion has threatened war. Their fleet is larger than anything we can match. Without help, the Council will fall. Billions will die. I am aware of the Valkar situation." "Then you know why I am here." Do-Yun leaned back in his chair. "You are here because you need our ships and our soldiers. You are here because the species who mocked us cannot defend themselves." Rin did not look away. "Yes, and why should we help you?" There was the question Rin had feared most. She had thought about it for 3 days, and she still did not have a good answer. The Council had given humanity no reason for loyalty. They had given them every reason for revenge, but she had to try. "Because you are better than us," she said. "Because you believe that all thinking beings have value, even the ones who have wronged you. Because protecting the weak is what you do, even when the weak do not deserve it." She paused. "And because if you do not help us, you will be alone in the galaxy with the Valkar. They will not make the same mistake we did. They will not underestimate you. They will come for you eventually, and you will face them without allies." Commodore Hana shifted slightly, but Do-Yun held up his hand. "You make practical arguments," he said. "That is wise. But I have a question for you. Ask it. When we offered you friendship, you gave us contempt. When we offered you trade, you gave us exploitation. When we offered you alliance, you gave us ridicule. His voice was soft but heavy. Now that you need us now, you offer respect. What guarantee do I have that this respect is real? What guarantee do I have that you will not return to contempt once the danger is past? Rin was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. You have no guarantee. I cannot promise you that every member of the council has changed. I cannot promise you that there will not be those who return to their old attitudes when the war is over. She met his eyes. But I can promise you this, I have changed. I know what we did wrong. I know what we should have done. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make sure the council treats humanity the way you deserve to be treated. And if you fail, then you can close your borders again, and we will have no right to complain. Do-Yun looked at her for a long time. Then he looked at Hannah. The Commodore gave a slight nod. Do-Yun turned back to Rin. Humanity will honor the terms we originally proposed: equal voting rights, fair trade routes, recognition of our colonies. Nothing more, nothing less. Rin felt something loosen in her chest. The council will accept those terms. I will make sure of it. You will also accept that we are partners, not children. You will consult us on decisions that affect our interests. You will treat our representatives with the same respect you show to elder species. Agreed. And you will remember this day. You will teach your children what happened when the council let pride override wisdom. You will make sure this mistake is never repeated. Rin bowed her head. I will, I swear it. Do-Yun stood up. Then we have an agreement. He held out his hand, a human gesture of trust. Rin reached out with one of her arms and took it. His grip was firm and warm. Admiral Beak is already moving the fleet, Do-Yun said. 300 ships will arrive at the Valkyr border within 6 hours. The defense platforms will rotate outward to support council positions. 300 ships. Rin had not expected so many. Will it be enough? She asked. Do-Yun smiled slightly, the first smile she had seen from him. The Valkyr have never faced human ships in open battle. They have only heard stories. I think they will find the reality more impressive than the stories. He was right. When the human fleet emerged from fold space at the Valkyr border, it was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were fast, agile, and heavily armed. They moved in perfect coordination, covering each other's weaknesses, multiplying each other's strengths. The Valkyr fleet outnumbered them. 4-1. It did not matter. Admiral Baek Junho commanded from the Indomitable, directing his ships with calm precision. Human tactics were unpredictable and creative. They attacked from angles the Valkyr did not expect. Retreated when the enemy advanced when the enemy retreated. Within 2 hours, the Valkyr had lost a third of their fleet. Within 4 hours, they were in full retreat. The Dominion's commander sent a message requesting negotiations. Junho replied with a single sentence: leave council space and do not return. They left. The war was over before it truly began. 1 year later, Ambassador Park Do-Yun took his seat in the Grand Assembly Hall. He sat on a platform equal in height to the Talori, the Caliphate, and all the other elder species. Beside him sat Commodore Yun Hana, now Admiral Yun Hana, commander of humanity's combined fleet. Behind them stood representatives from every human world: Earth, Mars, the Outer Reach colonies, all of them. High Mediator Voss had resigned in disgrace. His replacement was a younger Talori who spoke to humans with respect. Counselor Rin had kept her promise. She had fought for human rights in every council session, voted down every attempt to return to the old ways, and worked tirelessly to repair the damage her species had caused. Scholar, They's report on humanity had become required reading in schools across the galaxy. Children learned about the humans who came with open hands and were rejected, who left in silence and returned with strength, who could have taken revenge but chose to offer partnership instead.